Welcome back to Cody and the Cinema. Today is the first of a series that I'm calling Friday Night Film Noir. And I wanted to start with a movie that I just saw, and I had missed this one completely. It was not on my radar anywhere. And it's on the Criterion channel as of this video. It's called Where the Sidewalk Ends, a 1950 movie directed by Otto Preminger. This is the same director of another famous, better-known film noir, Laura, which I also like. And he directed Anatomy of a Murder, one of the great, all-time great courtroom dramas. And the picture opens with some sidewalk chalk writing out the title and cuts to a storm drain. Perfect setup. It might remind you a little bit of something like the opening of Sunset Boulevard. And we learn about, and I can't talk too much about the plot because this is a movie that you could spoil very quickly and sort of ruin some of the impact. But I will say that there's a tough guy, sort of bad, beat 'em up cop, and he gets in trouble for that, being like that. The police force is kind of worried that he's hurting their reputation and sort of sabotaging some of their efforts at crime prevention. And he's investigating a murder involving this dice game. Somebody gets knocked off, and he ends up wrapped up in this underworld investigating this Tommy Scalise guy. And along this journey of investigations and misadventures, he meets this woman, Morgan Taylor, played by Gene Tierney. And she and he have a pretty convincing on-screen relationship. And that's as much as I can talk about of the story, really. I do like their chemistry in this movie. I like how the director didn't oversell Tierney's character. He was very, the film's very modest with her, and I appreciate some of her dialogue. It's very natural. It's not, the whole picture has good dialogue. This doesn't feel like an old movie. It feels remarkably modern. In fact, there's one scene where this waitress, this woman working at a bar, comments on the tough guy cop that Dana Andrews plays and how he needs to have a family or kids or whatever. And this woman is telling Gene Tierney's character, and you kind of expect her to be like, oh yeah, I'll fix him up. But instead she says, don't waste your time on that propaganda. Like she calls the concept of like, stay at home mom, dad works a job, has 3 kids. Like she basically refers to that as propaganda. That's astonishingly forward thinking for 1950. Whether you agree with that or not, or it doesn't really matter. The idea that a Hollywood actress would have said something like that just sort of surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. But that's just an example of how this dialogue hasn't aged. It's kind of timeless. And as far as Dana Andrews playing this character, this what's his name? Mark Dixon? Yeah. He stays, just maybe he'll but he doesn't, he refuses to go too soft. He's happy to carry on this performance, and he's so dedicated to this character that honestly, you almost want to see a little bit of that Humphrey Bogart swagger, right? You almost want to see something coy and playful like an Orson Welles in The Third Man. But nonetheless, it's a good performance, and I think he anchors this character in reality, and I appreciate that as it goes along. So the way that this movie deals with like cops and investigations and the rights of like the detained or those questioned, it really kind of gets into that in a subtle way because the cops are abrasive. They don't have time for nonsense. Sometimes you wonder, are they just tired of like the tall tales that criminals tell them? Or are they arrogant and full of themselves and on a power trip? Or maybe it's a little of both. And the movie does a good job of exploring that territory. But my favorite part of this film is how it keeps you on your toes, looking out for clue after clue, sign after sign, threat after threat. There is a really strong scene in this movie and where a character is excuse me, a character is trying to get away with a crime, and he's doing his crime thing, and you keep looking like, is this witness going to check and see, is this person way up here going to see, like, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but it's really clever how this director frames and shoots this in such a way that you're constantly mindful of the physical space of the screen and what that means for the characters. It's beautiful stuff. This movie is very much about how, how does human behavior work? Why is it so irrational? Is it because people are too emotional, or is it because people are just human? It asks these interesting questions, and even though these characters will do things that are irrational, make irrational decisions, you always believe that these are the kind of irrational decisions these characters would make. They're not simply being stupid or making a dumb decision to move the plot along. It's really good screenwriting. And another thing here is that the movie comments on, it kind of seems to take the position of rules, procedures, laws, all these legal mechanisms that we have put into place as a society, they don't mean anything if the people that have to do the everyday work of enforcing and following these things, like if they don't actually personally take the time to practice justice and to be ethical in their own everyday behavior, then none of those things matter. And so the movie really investigates that. My feeling is that this is a must-see film noir classic. I don't know that I would put it up there with like Double Indemnity. I mentioned The Third Man, Maltese Falcon. I don't know if I would quite put it there, but it's certainly a must-see film noir. Those are my thoughts on the picture. If you have a film noir movie that you really enjoy, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to consider covering it or at least looking into it if I haven't heard of it. And we will see you next time.